Welcome to our show Success Unfiltered, where we share raw unfiltered stories about success. And today on our show we have very special guest. I welcome Deepak Balkrishna on this show. Deepak is co-founder and chief product officer of a Bay Area based company Trenta. Deepak, thanks for coming to our show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sandip. It's great to be here.
Perfect. So let's deep dive. So I have first thing for you, Deepak, is you started Adya, then Qualys acquired that, and then you move ahead with another company, right? Which one? The current one. So what's the biggest personal or professional lesson you carried forward after being acquired by Qualys?
That's an interesting question. I think I learned quite a few things from
Mm-hmm.
my first stint at Adya.
Uh-huh.
And when we got acquired into Qualys, then I told myself that there were a few things that need to be in place before I do my next one.
Mm-hmm.
First is from a market perspective. I think just when you start a company, it's very important to make sure that you have a good understanding of the market. The
Mm-hmm.
market needs to be big, and as much as possible, you should be towards the start of the market, right?
Okay.
So that's very important because you don't want to be too early, you don't want to be too late, and you want to
Mm-hmm.
be as much as possible at the right time. So the timing was something that I thought was important. Timing, a big market, good timing,
Mm-hmm.
and the other things are very very critical as well. Is you need to have an idea
Okay.
that you feel is differentiated enough that from anything else that is being done, right? So that's another third part, and the fourth part is have a great team that you. I mean, it's hard work. All jobs are hard work. Startups even more so. That you
Mm-hmm.
want to enjoy the time that you have with the people that you have that you're working with every single day. So have a great team at your side as you go along this journey. So those are the four things that I feel that I learned from the first stint that I feel that we have applied here at the new initiative at Trenta. Yeah.
Great, great. Okay. And how did this idea came in your mind, right? You were, working with Adya, then Qualys acquired it, and you started it. And why do you think this is the right time to start that?
Yeah, no, between Adya and Qualys, I was actually at another startup in the
Oh, okay.
DevOps space.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I was in touch with my co-founder, Raj, who was working in the healthcare compliance
Oh, okay.
side. So what he was working on, and it's very cool, is how, and as part of being CTO of healthcare companies, he had to be on the receiving side of compliance. And
Mm-hmm.
healthcare is one of those industries where there is a lot of compliance, right? So he was spending a lot
Yes.
of his time taking care of compliance requests, right?
Mm-hmm.
From requests from auditors, and it was very, very manual. And he felt there should be a better way to do this. So even pre-Chat GPT, pre-Gen AI, he was looking to see how we use language processing to make this process much more efficient, and that
Mm-hmm.
intrigued me. So I was trying to help him think through some market and product side of things, which is my background, right? And this was when even before I joined him full time. So after I moved on from my the other company, we started discussing, and then he said, if now that Gen AI has come up, there are even better ways now to take care of this problem of manual activities for compliance and audit. So that was my interest. So I wanted to again think of the timing side that I told you earlier, right?
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
felt like, okay, this is an absolutely perfect use case where audit and compliance are very deep language problems. There's lots of regulations, there's lots of policies, procedures, things like that, right? Lots of document diving that people do,
Mm-hmm.
which can easily now with a Gen AI based system it's a perfect use case for Gen AI
Okay.
based tooling, right? So the timing seemed right, right? And really enjoyed working with Raj, who I respect a lot, and he comes with a lot of background and the technical depth. And we felt, okay, let's look at this space some more. So that was the initiative. I joined Raj, who had already started thinking about this, and we decided to do it together. Initially, then that's how the initial idea started. We were actually looking at the compliance side first on healthcare compliance, but
Mm-hmm.
then we realized that the audit side, which is actually adjacent to compliance,
Mm-hmm.
is even more of a problem because they don't have any existing tooling, and most of their tooling is really around spreadsheets, Word documents,
Mm-hmm.
PDFs, reading through them, literally reading through them, right? And today they don't have any tooling where a tool like ours would really survive, would be good for them. So that was the genesis of the initial idea and how we have progressed. Yeah.
Wonderful. Actually, when I work every day on this security thing, right, what I seen is every company has that compliance engineer or a team
Yeah.
of compliance, right? Be it a team of 10 people or 100 or 1,000. So compliance is mandatory, right? And it
Yes.
is complicated. The first place coming to mind is complication, right? So
Yes.
many compliances and we have to comply and all those that are business needed. So in your view, what is broken with compliance now and how you guys can fix that?
Yeah, again, this compliance, this audit. I'll talk about both. It's like engineering and QA in my mind, right?
Okay.
Compliance is engineering, QA is audit, right?
Uh-huh.
So as you said it, right? So every company has to
Mm-hmm.
work be compliant because they
Mm-hmm.
can get audited. Right? And audit is non-discretionary. Every company is going to get audited: financial audit, internal audit, the regulatory audit, right? All of the different kinds of audit.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is broken? One is, well, broken is one word, but the number of regulations companies have to deal with is only increasing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, this is from the regulation side, on the industry regulations, and like SOC 2 coming from CPAs. There's
Okay.
ISO 27001,
Mm-hmm.
and that's only on the IT side, right? There's Sarbanes-Oxley on the financial side, that's more on the
Right.
federal government. So, then there's privacy standards like GDPR and CCPA. So, the
Mm-hmm.
number is just increasing. So the burden on companies is only increasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's problem number one. Just the sheer amount of what they have to deal with is increasing.
Okay.
Second, the tooling is there are tools out there mainly around collection of data, right, from with APIs on and collecting evidence and keeping it ready. But the actual act of running through an audit, that part is where it remains very manual, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's another problem. Is there's too much people doing, even in their minds, it's rote work, writing reports,
Mm-hmm.
reading documents to answer any questions, interviewing their clients when they're auditing them, and taking notes. Literally, right? They're taking notes and then reassessing. So those
Mm-hmm.
things are remain extremely manual, right? And this is an industry where, with Gen AI, with in the future agents, a lot of this can be orchestrated as well, right? So that's problem number two. Is this sheer manual work regulation? Third, and this is not unique to this industry, but I was surprised when I first heard it. Is the number of there's a huge talent shortage, right? What's
Okay.
happening is a lot of auditors tend to be close to retirement age or moving on from this profession. But the scale of audits are increasing, but there
Mm-hmm.
isn't enough people coming into this industry. So there's a huge talent shortage that companies have to deal with. So it's getting
Oh.
expensive for them to even take on any more business. So tools like they need some help with expanding the scope of their team without having to hire people, right? So how do you do that as well? So those are three big problems that I see in this space, right? So.
Wow. So, great, analogy there. Whatever you are mentioning, right? Engineering, QA, those kind of
Yeah.
words. I'm getting those. Great. So you are, two times founder, right? And I would like to know what is the hardest unfiltered truth that no one is talking on the LinkedIn about entrepreneurial journey, right? That is a
Again,
fancy word, right? Co-founder and
yeah,
CEO
yeah,
of a company. So what's that unfiltered truth that no one is talking on LinkedIn?
yeah. I think the very first time I did it, right,
Uh-huh.
and I had come from larger companies, like most of us do,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a certain level of comfort when you are in part of a larger organization because there are some organizational structures around where you are, right? Someone is helping you with HR, someone
Mm-hmm.
helping you with finance,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things. So you have a much more narrow view of what you're doing. When
Okay.
you move into entrepreneurship, all those scaffolding fall
Mm.
away, right?
Oh, I
So you
see.
have to be involved in everything, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about it. Can you make paycheck for your few employees, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of things that you take on from as a risk. I mean, there's of course personal risk and financial risk because you've given up the quote unquote safety of a corporate job and you're moving to do something yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
there's also the additional stress that you take on when you have a team and you feel much more responsible for their benefit, making sure that they have trusted you to come and work for you in a very small company. You want to make sure you're there for them, you're qualifying for them, right? People don't understand how much of I wouldn't call it burden. It's a huge responsibility, right? You
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily think of this technology, this product, and of course this. So that's a huge thing. Is mentally you have to make that your risk profile needs to change to be able to manage and maintain and feel comfortable taking on that both professional risk, personal risk, financial risk, as well as the risk of the privilege of taking care of this team that you have brought on and making sure that you're caring for them as well. That is, I think, one unfiltered truth that you have to keep in mind when you first get into this.
Yeah, actually, I'm hearing that first time. That is really unfiltered, right? No one is talking about that risks in personal and professional life. You well said that. Great.
Yeah.
So everyone is talking about AI these days, right? Any conference you go, in office, on everywhere, right? If
Yeah.
you are working. So and everyone is building product around that. Like you said, everyone is targeting a market, HR, finance, and this and that, and building the things around. So what is that one underrated and overrated, thing about AI these days?
I think AI is one of those technologies that is absolutely going to change things, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think we have been through many cycles that I felt I could not understand. There was metaverse, there was
Uh-huh.
crypto, and I'm sure a lot of people love crypto and blockchain and Web3, which I did not understand very much. But
Okay.
AI, I don't think is one of those. AI is fundamentally going to change how
Mm-hmm.
businesses work, where operations work. Now, so
Okay.
that is definitely going to happen. Now, the question is how much and to which degree, to which industry. I think that is where the question lies, right?
Oh.
So, I firmly believe that where there are manual processes that can be automated is where, and there's a certain structure to that work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that is where I think the current generation of AI, based on generative AI, is
Okay.
well placed to help resolve. And this is like, of course, audit and compliance already talked about it, but there's a legal profession. What I hear, again, I don't know too much about those domains, but
Mm-hmm.
also it has a lot of people doing very repetitive work, right?
Okay.
Not all lawyers, but definitely paralegals, for example. So that
Mm-hmm.
can be automated, right? So there are lots of service delivery jobs like accounting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that also, so those professional white collar work,
Mm-hmm.
where there is a lot of repetitive aspects to the job that can be learned and automated, is a perfect case for the current generation of AI. So that's where I think it is best suited. Of course, engineering and coding, we have already heard that, and that's already being proven, right? So that's where I think AI is best suited to work. So beyond that, if there is not that much structure in the work, I don't think the AI is actually as going to be much more fruitful for in terms of use case. Right?
Got
So
it.
that's how I see it. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So you worked both the companies, creating a product, right? And I'm sure this is a challenge these days, how to, create a product that is market ready, and we are in ahead in the competition, right? So how do you decide what not to build
Yeah.
at the initial start stage?
Yeah, that's a great one. That if I had to choose two unfiltered truths in your earlier
Uh-huh.
question, I already talked about the risk part of it. But the second
Mm-hmm.
part is to change our thinking. Most of us come from an engineering background
Yes.
or a product management background, like I did, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we think in terms of technology and how can I use this technology for a market. You should think
Okay.
of it as in reverse, right? You should think of first what is the market,
Mm-hmm.
which means where am I do I want to focus my time and my effort?
Mm-hmm.
Who is my ICP, the ideal customer profile, right? Who am I
Okay.
going to sell to?
Mm-hmm.
And then what can I build for them that will make their jobs 10x better, or we could provide 10x value, and value has depending on the axis, could be about money, could be about time, could be whatever it is. Right?
Okay.
So you need to understand that very, very deeply before you build anything. Right?
Okay.
First, understand the true market, your ICP, etc. Right? So once you do and very clear about that, then it's easy to say no to other things. Right? If you are what you're thinking about of building or being asked to build does not help your ICP, your
Mm-hmm.
market, and you have to be very focused for the first 10 customers. You have to be
Okay.
extremely focused so that you say, okay, I know that person. Should know them by name. You should know their habits. You should have a personal relationship. You should know what
Oh.
they want, and
Uh-huh.
they should be able to be your early design partners to guide you along this journey, right?
Okay.
And if you can't make them happy or anything you're building is not going to help them, then you probably want to say no, right? So that is how I would consider is what to build, what not to build should come back to the market and the ICP that you're building towards. It may be that you don't build for them today, you build them to the future. So that's the discussion. It's sometimes prioritization,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes saying no forever, right? Because it's not part of your vision. So you need to understand that very deeply. Right?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, for the risk that you mentioned earlier, right? We have to get that risk in personal life, professional life. But the another major thing is we have to keep growing, right? And we
Yeah.
have to, be at that competition level where it is needed. So what is that daily routine or that mental framework that you carry every day in order to, be that risk as well, and, be in the competition and do that thing every day?
Yeah. I think the most important resource for
Mm-hmm.
everyone is
Mm-hmm.
not money. Money
Okay.
will come, money will go. It's time.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Right? Time once gone is gone. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is what I try to tell everyone. I try to tell my daughter also, who's too young
Uh,
to understand it very well. It is
uh-huh.
like be very mindful and protective of your time. Right. But
Okay.
it doesn't mean just work all the time. That is also very important. Is
Mm-hmm.
to understand the balance
Okay.
for what makes you successful. Sometimes you have to do other things outside of work to
Okay.
make sure you get fulfillment, spending time with family, working out, meditating, whatever makes you, I think, much more grounded so that you will be more effective at work. Right. So
Hmm.
understanding time and time management is, I think, a very critical aspect of, I think, of what I do, I hope to do, right?
Okay.
So that I'm mindful of time, right? So that's one thing, is I set aside time for family, for working out, right? And I'm protective of that, but and so I have habits around around those, spending time outside of family, and that's one habit that I inculcate, right? I don't have, some people I know have early morning get up at 4 a.m. habits and all that. I don't have any specific things around that, but I
Okay.
do have set aside time to where I try to clear my calendar to think deeply, right?
Mm-hmm.
On any one topic. You want to set aside 1 or 2 hours if you can, right, where
Okay.
you're free from meetings, and so
Mm-hmm.
that you can think deeply about a problem you're at. Not every day is it possible, because again, I'm an early stage startup. I try to move
Mm-hmm.
quickly, but if possible, especially on Fridays, where we have some blocks of time, set aside time to go deeply on one topic. You want to set aside practices where you're not getting pulled aside for every email. That's another
Okay.
thing I try to establish, is how do you not get interrupt driven, right? Which is
Mm.
where every small thing pulls you aside and you're unable to do deep, meaningful work. There are lots of techniques I like. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique,
Yeah, yeah.
which is right, which for time management, I subscribe to that as much as possible. Is set
Okay.
aside times using the Pomodoro technique. So those are 3 or 4 things that I try to inculcate in my life: time management,
Mm-hmm.
applying the Pomodoro technique, and doing deep work as much as possible, setting aside time for that. So most of it is, as you can see, around time management. So,
Great. Okay. So
yeah.
I'm hearing couple of times from you is you do prioritize thing, right? All the times, the time, personal life, family life, right? So if someone wants to start new as a founder, right, and if he has, 50K dollars, right, and he has 6 months to do that, what would you tell him to prioritize?
Yeah, like I said, understand before you spend a single dollar, as much as
Mm-hmm.
or how you spend the dollars, right? Is
Okay.
don't hire a team, don't build anything.
Mm-hmm.
These days, especially with vibe coding, you should be able to do it yourself, right? Is
Okay.
get out there, and if
Mm-hmm.
you want to create a prototype, right, that you
Okay.
want to show to someone and ask them, does this work for you? If I build this, would you buy?
Mm-hmm.
Get that in place. Customer discovery, market discovery is the most important thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's of course wonderful books around customer discovery by Steve Blank. I would highly
Okay.
recommend that.
Okay.
There's also Lean Startup by Eric Ries. That's also a very good book. So those are two books to navigate through, at least my principles around
Okay.
that, right? So which
Mm-hmm.
means go out, talk to as many people, understand the market, understand what you're going to build, do it
Mm-hmm.
that as cheaply as you can, right?
Okay.
So until you have that established, that you understand who you're building for and that there is a problem, don't start building it, right?
Okay.
If you want to prototype something so that they get their minds thinking to answer your questions more deeply,
Mm-hmm.
try to use tools. Today it's with the designing with Figma, or more so with Bolt and Lovable, and all those tools is
Mm-hmm.
so much easier. You should be able to do it quite cheaply in terms of money. Yes, you'll
Got
have to
it.
spend some time,
Mm-hmm.
but that 50K should go a long way towards establishing that first round of feedback, right?
I
Um,
see.
yeah. So understand, hypothesis driven trusting is important. It's like essentially everything is around you're making up a set of hypothesis, which is a fancy word for guesses, right?
Okay.
So you're guessing that there is a
Uh-huh.
market, there is this player. If I build it, I can buy.
Right.
But the more you get feedback to cross off it from that's a risky guess. So
Mm-hmm.
to de-risk that guess, I have to talk to 5 people who've come from this market, right? So you need to be very objective in how you think through establishing and removing risk. It's all about risk reduction, right? You want to take away risk from the market, take away risk from the product, and the only way you can do that is there's a very famous saying from that's one of those books, Customer Discovery book by Steve Blank, which means get out of the building. It means don't think and assume you know the answers. Assume you don't know anything. You just know the questions. Deeply understand your questions so you know who to talk to get those answers validated, right? So that's very, very important to do, right? So spend your money and time wisely to remove risk from the market and from before you start building anything. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. So on time, every time going forward, I will remember that thing, right? Once it is gone, right?
Yeah, that is very important, right? As I've gotten older, that has been even more so important. I'm like, okay, that makes it important to about work versus family and personal time. It's important to calibrate around that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I have this last question, right? So what is success for you today? And was it the same for the first startups, or will it be the same going forward?
From the work side or from the personal side, or what? How are you asking?
The combined approach, we can say, right? Because life is going on and everything that you do, it has to be aligned, right? So what is success means to you today?
Yeah, again, on the personal side, I hope I'm a wonderful father and I leave behind a legacy and a wonderful daughter. Right? For me, that is very, very clear. That's always number one for me is to be a good person from personal life side of things, right? So from the professional side, success is making sure see, for me, and I know this is true for my co-founder, we talk about it a lot, right? When we come across a person who leans forward when I show them and say, if you build this is great, I could use it. That actually fills us with pride. It fills us with completeness, right? So seeing something you're building that came out of nothing and a customer using it, right? And the money, of course, is great, but it's actually seeing their light up and say, wow, I can do something now I could not do before, and that's all thanks to you. That for me is just the definition of success as a startup. Right?
Wow.
You made something happen that was not possible before or was very inefficient before, and it only was because you thought through and built and brought to market to somebody to try it out and feel that you have done a great job. That is the definition for me of success. Right? So
wonderful. Yeah. Great.
Everything else, once you do that and you learn it and repeat it, then the rest of it will fall, with the money, etc. But understanding that who is your ICP, can you make them happy, and can you find the next one, make them happy, and that becomes the path. Right?
Got it.
That is the success. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Deepak, for coming to our show and sharing that startup knowledge. It was like a book I went through. I got to learn a lot of things, and I'm sure our viewers will also get that knowledge, and it will be definitely helpful for them. Thank you so much.
I hope I was able to answer your questions. Sandip, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Deepak.